Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a Puerto Rican podcast focusing on Star Wars and other nerd related media. Welcome back. It's been a while if you're joining us. As you know, we're not in quite a hiatus, but we are ebbing and flowing as Nani is still taking her test for the law bar, which she is doing this week. So please, if you've been thinking about how's it going for her, she's been in lockdown studying, and this week she finally takes the bar. So, not that she needs it, but let's all just wish her a very good luck so that she can just pass the bar and come and rejoin Triad of the Force. Moving on from that, as you know, Star Wars news has been a little slow lately. If you have been on social media, particularly on the Twitter sphere, you know that it has been active, for lack of a better word. But we will not be talking about everything that has been going on Twitter. That is something you can find out for yourself, but let's just say it's been spicy. On today's episode, though, we will be showing a roundtable interview that we were very lucky to have participated for. This one is about Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, Rebuilt the Galaxy, which is the newest Star Wars project that premiered last week on Disney Plus. It's a 4 episode miniseries, limited series, whatever you want to call it. Written, executive produced and written by Dan Hernandez and Benji Samit, and starring Gaten Matarazzo, who you might know from Stranger Things, Tony Revolori, who you might know from a lot of other things as well, from Wes Anderson films to Spider-Man to the dearly departed Willow, along with Bobby Moynihan, who plays Jedi Bob. And today our roundtable is going to be 2 for 1 in a way, because it's our roundtable where we interview, along with other amazing content creators, we interview Dan Hernandez and Benji Samit, who, besides writing and producing Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, have also been responsible for being involved in writing uh, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the Adams Family 2, and last but not least, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Um, so we won't review Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy on this episode. Feel we're gonna do a later episode, hopefully with Nani, where we can talk about the ins and outs of the episode, because this one was really special. If you have seen some of our other episodes in the past where we have talked about previous Lego Star Wars episodes, we have been very enthusiastic about them. Obviously, they're canon adjacent, I think, is the term that we lovingly use for these stories. So they're a little lower stakes, they're more fun, but they're definitely quite enjoyable to watch. But this one has definitely been more interesting, especially because it introduces a version of what you might call the multiverse, which can get spicy, can get dicey. But today we will not be talking about all of that. Let's just say that at least these 4 episodes of Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy are very fun to watch, and these interviews are a joy to have been a part of. And as someone who has been very privileged and honored to have been included in other roundtables in the past before, which have all been amazing, and it's always great to have share these roundtables with these other content creators and talk to these amazing people that are involved in creating this universe. It's always great to have been a part of it. But there's something particularly special, unique, and joyful about the interviews that we were a part of for Rebuild the Galaxy. Like I said, the one that we're going to listen to today with Dan and Benji was amazing. But the one with Bobby Moynihan and the other one with Gayton and Tony were also very special. And I think that I don't want to put words in all the other content creators' mouths here, but I think that all of us really enjoyed it, and it was sorely needed joy and positivity and hopefulness for Star Wars and storytelling in general, and just like how we can share these stories with the people that are making them and us as the people that are enjoying them. So, without further ado, let's watch this great interview with Dan Hernandez and Benji Samit. Enjoy.
Hi, Dan and Benji. This is Art Eddie from Art of Fatherhood. We were at a roundtable with the talent like Gate and Tony and Bobby, and they love working with you. They love your work, and I loved the first 4 episodes. I'm guessing everyone here did as well. How much fun and leeway did you guys have mixing up the different characters and planets and ships? And was there an easy one, and was there one that was like super hard to like get through?
Um, I mean, luckily we didn't really have trouble getting anything through or not. Like from the jump, Lucasfilm and Lego and everyone was just so supportive with this wild idea that we had of just mashing everything up. We really they wanted this to be a celebration for the big 25th anniversary of Lego Star Wars, like this iconic partnership between these two awesome brands. But as part of that celebration, we really wanted to uh, recreate the way kids and honestly adults too play with their Lego, which is you take the big bin, you dump it on the ground, and you just mix and match. You don't just act out the movie as it scene by scene in proper order. No, you've got timelines are all mixed up, ships are mixed up, good guys are bad guys are good. Like that's just part of it. It's inherent to what Lego Star Wars is. And so with that in mind, it was kind of we had free reign to in this mashed up galaxy do whatever we felt seemed right.
I can tell you the part that took the longest time, and I think that was the most challenging, but ultimately the most rewarding, was the actual removal of the cornerstone sequence where we really see the galaxy get rebuilt for the first time. That was a lot of time spent figuring out what does this look like visually. I have to give incredible props to Chris Buckley, our amazingly talented director, as well as everyone at Atomic Cartoons, who really, from the beginning, we knew that that sequence had to work. Bobby Moynihan does an incredible acting performance during that sequence, and it gives me chills to watch. So as far as difficulty, I would say that was the most difficult because it had to set the tone for every single thing that occurs in the rest of the show. And if it didn't work, then the whole thing kind of the bottom dropped out. But thankfully, we really spent a lot of time on that, really spent a lot of time on the words that Bobby was saying. And ultimately, it's to me, I think it's one of the moments where I hope people will go, oh, this show's really going for something more than I maybe anticipated that it was going for.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Art.
Hi, Dan and Benji. It's Charlotte from Skytalkers. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We loved Rebuild the Galaxy.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah. Mark Hamill was a consulting producer on the show and a voice acting legend. It was so cool to see him in the show and play this awesome version of Luke Skywalker. How did his involvement in the show come about, and what was that process like?
So I mean, when we wrote it, like obviously that was the dream as we were writing, but we knew we weren't confident necessarily that we were going to get him because he hasn't been in certain other Lego Star Wars content in the past and things like that, and it's uh, but we were fortunate that his schedule allowed it this time around, but also, we sent him a nice note, we sent him the scripts and just like hoped for the best. And we had a meeting with him where he was just like, you know what, I really love these scripts. You guys really get Star Wars, and this seems like a fun version of the character to play, so let's do it. And we were really, I mean, we're still pinching ourselves about it. Like it was surreal to sit there and watch him, uh, you know, become Luke Skywalker in front of our eyes. And in terms of the consulting, like we talked through it with him. He had the reality is he knows Luke Skywalker better than we could ever write, and so he was pitching ideas and thoughts for what Luke could be doing, what other characters could be doing, and it was just super helpful to like hear stories of making those original movies and yeah, just gave us so much more insight into things. And Yeah, it's surreal that it even happened.
I would also say that when you have someone like Mark involved in your Star Wars project, that energy trickles down to everyone, not only in the cast, but the crew as well, because it does feel a little bit like, oh, he thinks that there's something here that's special enough, that's interesting enough for him to come back and perform, the most iconic character of all time. And we all felt really challenged to live up to that legacy and to really put our all into it. Down the line, the storyboard artist, the editor, the sound engineers, every single person, when they heard that Mark was involved, the response was universally like, "Oh, well then I better bring my A game." And that's how we felt, and that's the legacy of that Mark brings to something like this.
Hi, Dan and Benji. This is Keith and Kerwin of Father.Son.Galaxy.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you. We love the show. And we admire your creativity with flipping the characters, the storylines of some of our familiar characters, like making Admiral Akbar a clone trooper and Jar Jar a Dark Lord. What other characters did you have in mind to change that did not make it into the series?
We had a really funny sequence with Poe Dameron as a parking valet that kind of slows down the action when they're running toward Yesi's ship. And he kind of gets in their way and is sort of very,
instead of the greatest pilot in the galaxy, our Poe was the greatest Parker in the galaxy. And that was a fun one. There were a lot of fun things.
That one was one that I really was sad to lose, but ultimately someone eventually had to say, guys, you can't put every character that you've ever read or seen in the show. We're cutting you off. And so unfortunately that was a hard cut, but it was such a funny sequence. And so that's one that'll live in our hearts. Maybe someday that version of Poe will reappear.
It was really nice to see like deleted scenes of all the characters that didn't make it into the show.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, there was so much stuff that I wish that I could share with you. At a certain point, you realize you're writing way too long, and then you gotta reel it in. You gotta reel it in, or everyone's gonna be mad at you, and so you gotta stop. So I did compare it before to a Toys R Us shopping spree. It was kind of like running down the aisles, being like this one and this one and this one and this one. And then you get to the register and you go, oh, we got too much stuff. We got too much. We did too much. We gotta dial it back. But everything that remained was the stuff that we said, we can't lose this. There's no way to lose it.
Yeah, this is Brian with Full of Sith. One of the things I noticed, I was really blown away by how, like, this was not what I was expecting based on, like, the ads and stuff. And I was really struck by how, on the surface, it feels very much like, okay, we're rebuilding the galaxy, but it gets much more subtle and clever than that, even with, like, the structure of the story, where there's elements that of the structure, like in these 4 episodes of all of the Star Wars movies and all the major plot beats that make it into the structure that you don't always hang a lantern on. They're just happening very organically, and I'm wondering, from a writing perspective, how you approached sort of remixing the story beats that we all know so much in Star Wars in a way that work here organically without sort of pointing at it and making it so apparent, because I think some of them, like, I was rewinding and going like, wait, did they really do that? Because they fly by so elegantly.
I think that it was really important to us to say, okay, what is a great Star Wars story? And more specifically, what is a great Lego Star Wars story? Which I think is its own tonality and its own thing, and I think allows for comedy and commentary and referential humor that is unique to Lego Star Wars. So we sort of started there. But then we said, let's break down the archetypical, powerful moments from each of those movies and each of those shows. Why do they function? What functions about them? What kinds of characters and relationships need to be present within those moments in order for it to become iconic? And so you are right that we really said, okay, this moment is a little bit like that moment that's so terrific in Revenge of the Sith. So what's our version of that? What's a Lego Star Wars version of Obi-Wan and Anakin's sort of final confrontation in Revenge of the Sith? How can that now be applied to the brother dynamic of Sig and Dev? Okay, what are some of those iconic shots? What are the, for instance, Luke Skywalker after they fight Darth Jar Jar in sort of that fish guts area down beneath uh, uh, the Mos Eisley Marina? We said, you know, this version of Luke is very different than the Luke that we're familiar with, but there's something intrinsic to the character and to the soul of Luke Skywalker that's going to make him a hero, that's going to make him leave Tatooine no matter what. And if you look on the wall, there's an architectural detail of the binary suns of Tatooine. And so that's a little bit of a nod to, there is a power in this sort of mythical storytelling that goes between these worlds and runs in parallel, even though it's not our Luke Skywalker in quotations, it still is our Luke Skywalker in spirit, in feel, in emotion. And that was really important to us to capture those sorts of elements from throughout every piece of Star Wars content.
And we really wanted it to not just be a silly referential side of Lego Star Wars, but we wanted it to, we essentially wrote it as if we were writing just any Star Wars story, you know, like we really wanted, you know, and then I think as you watch, like by the time you get to like the climax in part 4, like a lot of the comedy kind of falls away and it just sort of turns into a Star Wars story. And even me when I'm watching it, like I sometimes forget that I'm even looking at Lego when it gets dramatic between the brothers like that. And you know, so that's just sort of what was in our minds of just like what is iconically Star Wars, and you know that fun, that wonderment, and we wanted to wed that to all the silly things that were going to happen as well.
I am so glad that I followed that question because I think I have something that will kind of transition perfectly. And one of the things I love, gentlemen, by the way, Dan's there, coffee with Kenobi, that one of the things I love about this is that, yes, it's fun, but beyond the wonder and the spectacle and the Easter eggs and the mixing and matching, there's a really beautiful story that has something to say. There's cost, there's a reflection of our culture. Talk to me about what about this story needed to be told by you two.
I think that one of the things that we've experienced in our career, we've been really fortunate to work with some of the most amazing franchises that exist. Pokemon, Ninja Turtles, Addams Family. It's been really, we're so fortunate. But one of the things that we have occasionally talked about is, what are the points of departure? What are the points, how far can you go in changing something that everyone is familiar with? And what is the power of that? And what is the downside of that? And what we ultimately settled on is that if you can identify something sort of spiritually or philosophically as feeling true to the thing that you love, then I think that people are willing to go with that and accept something that's a little bit different. And I think that that directly relates to the idea of how we play. We were got to play in sort of a metaphorical sense with all of the Star Wars galaxy. But in a more literal sense, some kids play with their Lego by wanting to build everything perfectly and leave them constructed. Some people love to build Lego and then smash them and build them a completely different way. And what we were trying to pull out is that there isn't really a right answer to that question. That all of the ways that we play, both with Lego, with characters and worlds that we love, that there's value and worth to that, and that we should embrace this spirit of play, embrace this spirit of newness, and also acknowledge, and I think that this is something that I find moving, and I hope that like my kids will take away from this, you can't always control the things that are going to happen to you. And that's one of the reasons we felt like it was really important not to reset the galaxy at the end of the special. This is a thing that happened. You can't go back. We think for a moment that you can, and ultimately it turns out you can't. But what you can do is continue to move forward in your life and find friends and relationships and people that you love that can help you rebuild your life and in this case rebuild the galaxy. And I think that that's a powerful message, which is unexpected things happen all the time, but we have the ability to adapt and respond and become comfortable.
And that's something that's like very unique to Lego, like the themes of Lego, which is like, if you have a different toy or a fancy model of something and it breaks, then it's broken and like there's no going back. But with Lego, you can, anytime Lego breaks, it can be rebuilt. And you can always rebuild it. You can make it better. You can make it different. You can make it exactly the same as it was. It's up to you. It's every person playing with those Lego sort of can choose their own path, and that's exactly what we wanted Sig to be going through.
Hi guys, Gustavo from Triad of the Force. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I guess I'm gonna just keep this through line that we've been talking about, because my question is in a way about Sig, fandom, and storytelling in general. Because when we look at Sig at the beginning of the special, he's very much the opposite of Luke, where Luke is looking into the sunset, wanting to make his new adventures and for travel outside of Tatooine. Sig wants to stay in his planet and just retell the same old stories and kind of stay in that safe place. And for me, it was very interesting to just watch how then this special was developing, because as we like kind of see where the media landscape is nowadays with this cycle of nostalgia where media kind of wants to tell the same stories, and a lot of fans also want the same safe stories. This special was interesting in the sense of challenging that notion of like sometimes you can have a new story within the same world. So I guess my question to you guys is, what is the value in reinterpreting like these stories and telling new stories within this world, especially like in this cycle of nostalgia that we're living in right now?
I think you really have identified something that we very much talked a lot about when we set out to remix and rebuild the Star Wars galaxy. And I think the beauty of Star Wars is that there's a place for any story that you can conceptualize, any character that you can imagine is somewhere out there in a galaxy far, far away. I think that in the character of Sig, is very much based on the two of us in the sense that we studied those Star Wars encyclopedias. We sat there with those books. I listened. Gosh, I actually got in trouble in 4th grade because my teacher called my mom in to say, Dan's only reading Star Wars books at like reading break time. And my mom, to her great credit, said, at least he's reading. And now, being in my own profession, I'm even more grateful to my mom because I've made it my life. And I think the power of these stories is the power of language, it's the power of vocabulary, and ultimately it's the power of communication. That I can go somewhere around the world, I can go to Japan, or I can go to Egypt, or I can go to Denmark, and I can talk to someone about General Grievous and what a funny character that guy is. But at the same time, I think that we as fans, when you live in this space long enough, you do seek out new stories, new iterations, new flavors, nuance, differences. And what we found with this special is that we actually had the perfect delivery system to explore what it means to tell a new story, what it means to think that you know everything and to find you don't know anything. And I felt that if you did it in such a way that was respectful to the source material and because which we love and would never disrespect, we felt like people would come along for that ride and go, it's not what I expected to see, but it worked. It worked and it felt like its own thing, but it also felt like Star Wars and it also felt like Lego. And I think that that's the power of what we set out to achieve. And I hope people feel like we achieved it in some small measure.
Dan and Benji, thank you very much for your time today. It's funny how you mentioned the dropping the bag of Legos. The 2nd grade class that I work with, when they have their free day, that's the first thing they do. They grab the bag, drop it, and they all just start building different things every time that I've been in the classroom. But my question for you is, we've seen a lot of, I asked this earlier to Tony again, so I wanted to ask you too. We see a lot of familiar vehicles and familiar characters in Rebuild the Galaxy, but if you two had the chance to rebuild any Star Wars vehicle from the galaxy, for yourselves, which vehicles would you choose to rebuild and to remix?
Oh man, I mean I think a lot of our favorites we put into the show. Like I think my personal favorite is the sandcrawler with the AT-AT legs. That was I just had an image of that in my mind, and then the animators and designers did an amazing job making that happen. I would love to ride down the freeway with one of those.
For me, it was the Ewok bounty hunter ships. I love the organic components on the Y-wing. It was a pet idea that we had for a long time about what if an Ewok really did figure out how to fly. And I'm really so thrilled with the job that Chris Buckley and everyone at Atomic Cartoons did bringing that to life.
Yeah, James from Jedi News here. I just want to say, as a Lego ambassador for over 10 years, you've done an absolutely fantastic job and you've brought these characters to life. And the story is really, really captivating. And obviously, it's got a great lesson for all of us as well. I just wanted to know about the actual 3 sets that have come out. How involved were you in choosing those 3 sets? Because there are so many that could have been chosen. I want that flying land speeder, please. And do you think we'll get any more of those?
I mean, I'm a hardcore Lego nerd, and it was a dream come true to be involved with the sets. Like, yeah, we were at the ground floor of like, meeting with the designers and talking about what was in the show and what sets could possibly be. It was very hard to pick what the three would be, but yeah, like it's been a dream, and I hope we can do more. Because yeah, I always dreamt that I would get Lego sets made out of something I wrote, but I never thought I would be directly involved with the Lego sets like I am on this, and so it's very surreal.
Hi, Alex from Star Wars Explained. In addition to Mark Hamill, you had so many returning cast members: Sam Witwer, Phil Damar, Kelly Marie Tran, Ahmed Best, Naomi Aki. So most of them are playing against their character's original type. Do you have any fun stories from the recording booth as these actors settled into new versions of familiar characters?
I think that every single one of them was up for the challenge. I think, seeing Ahmed come into the booth and we go, so do you want to talk about, what Darth Jar Jar might sound like? And him going, oh, I think it's going to sound like this. And just going, oh, of course. Yes, that is how Darth Jar Jar sounds. Or the same thing with Darth Rose Tico. Kelly Marie Tran is talented in a way that I can barely describe. And so I think that all of these actors came in with a real sense of fun and exploration. And it was a marvel to watch.
Like I said, that was really, really special interview. And I want to thank Lucasfilm. I want to thank Disney for inviting us to be part of this roundtable to interview Dan and Benji here. I also want to take a minute to thank all the other amazing content creators, like Jedi News, Star Wars Explained, Art of Fatherhood, Skytalkers, Keith and Kerwin from Father.Son, Full of Sith, Dan Sir from Coffee with Kenobi, Fandads. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but I want to thank everybody because I think the collective group really made it a really, really great experience. But this isn't it. Obviously, like I said, we're gonna maybe have a couple other roundtables that we're gonna release out in the week. We're just gonna, splice them up so that they're easier to digest for everybody, and just have something to look forward to for the rest of the week. But hopefully, you enjoyed this first episode of our roundtable interviews with the writers and producers of Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. But with that, this one was short and sweet. And stay tuned for the rest of the week for the rest of the interviews to come out. But with that, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We have been Triad of the Force. If you enjoyed that, please make sure to share, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you want. You can find us anywhere where podcasts can be found. As you know, just search Triad of the Force and you will find us. And on social media, like I said earlier in this episode, Twitter has been a dumpster fire. So you will usually find us in a more peaceful environment of Threads, but we are everywhere. Just search at Triad of the Force and you will find us. But with that, thank you so much. We have been Triad of the Force. Until the next Rebuild the Galaxy Roundtable interviews, may the Force be with you.